In the Philippines, out of the 92.1 million household populations, 1.57% has disability based on the 2010 Census of Population and Housing. The Philippines has a Magna Carta for Persons with Disabilities, or RA 7277, stating their rights and privileges including the right to education, to employment, and to practice their civil and political rights.
Yung batas natin dyan, dapat walang diskriminasyon. Kahit na ikaw ay may kapansanan o ikaw ay walang kapansanan, lahat tayo ay may karapatan. Magiging hadlang ito sa amin kapag hindi kami tinanggap dahil sa aming kapansanan.
However, not every person with disabilities or PWDs are given those rights. Oftentimes, they are forgotten and not given the same access, rights, and privileges as those without disabilities.
Para sa mga persons with disability sector, tayong lahat ay magtulong-tulong kasi lumabas tayo, huwag tayong magtago sa ating mga bahay. Kailangan nakikita ang ating sektor upang malaman nila na tayo ay parte ng isang komunidad, parte ng isang gobyerno, na nandito kami, naghihintay kami ng inyong tulong at ganoon din kung ano yung maitutulong namin para sa ating bansa.
With that in mind, how is the government ensuring that the rights of persons with disabilities are not violated? Aside from the Magna Carta, what other laws does the country have servicing the PWDs? Under the law, what are the rights and privileges given to PWDs? Good evening. You're watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno.
And I'm Attorney Nepomuceno. Tonight, we will discuss the legal rights of persons with disabilities, or PWDs, what you need to know about their rights, and what benefits and privileges are entitled to them. We'll discuss this and more with our guests.
Our guests for tonight are Manuel Agkawili, President and CEO of Tahanan Walang Hagdan, and Honorable Carmen Reyes-Zubiaga of National Council on Disability Affairs. Good evening and thank you for being with us tonight.
Good evening, Sir Noli and Ma'am Carmen. This is a very special topic. I think all of us knows one person at least who has the disability,
a lot of
and
people
it's very,
underestimate just how much Filipinos have disabilities, and I guess we can start off by really defining what are disabilities.
Yeah, how do you define a person with disability? What is disability legally speaking?
Based on the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, persons with disabilities include those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment. Take note of this, which in interaction with various barriers may hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. So when we say that a person is impaired, that means that meron siyang functional limitation. Like for example, if a person is defined as a person with psychosocial disability, which may be caused by bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, severe phobia, or any behavioral disorder, and that there are times that this person is fully functioning, but the stigma is still there, and it really hinders
prevents
his or
him
her participation.
Yeah.
And the stigma that really is the most serious thing that we have to erase when it comes to looking at the rights of persons with disabilities.
That's very interesting that you read us the definition, because a lot of people just automatically think about people with a physical disability. They see them in crutches, or of course, or wheelchair, or blind.
Only the visible ones.
Yeah, so psychological is a big deal. But I guess it would help for us to also define, like, for instance, if you have someone who's an alcoholic and because of that is unable to function very well in or in school, is that a person with a disability?
In fact, that is already defined as a person with psychosocial disability because, you know, his behavior is totally dependent on alcohol, and that limits his full function as a person
That's quite
with
interesting.
proper disposition.
So, for instance, would that person, an alcoholic, then be entitled to all the rights of PWDs or persons with disabilities?
As long as it is proven he has a medical certificate, and that would really define his functional limitation in terms of social functioning, fully concentrating on task, and that's something that would not make him a fully functional person.
Now, Sir Nolly, and this might be a dumb question, but is there a difference between disability or disabled and handicap? I mean, is there a legal, I guess, relevance?
Distinction,
if you call yourself,
Yeah, basically, it's not.
It's
anyway.
essentially the same. Okay.
Now, but let me just correct certain issues that I think came out today. Defining the number of people with disability in this country at only 1.6 million. The World Health Organization said the minimum that we have in this country as a developing country is about 10% of our total population.
So that brings it to about 9 million
Yes,
at least.
but the expanded
list, which includes
which is 15%, is what Carmen to a degree touched on, which is including those who have got psychosocial problems. No? When you include them, they defined it as about 15%. In fact, in the last speech made by the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, he said that there are about 900 million persons with disability out of our total 6 billion.
Close to a billion. Yeah.
Close to a billion.
Okay.
Wow. So it's basically anything
huge
that debilitates you, right? I mean, and from fully functioning. Now, I guess one of the questions there that I guess for a lot of people is that they want to, if they want to, let's say, as Karen mentioned, secured benefits, because under the law there are specific laws that provide benefits for people with disabilities, right? And maybe we should start off with those laws, and then and then we can go later on.
I'll
how
start
they're
with
gonna-
a very simple question before we go to the general laws. Like, for instance, this is the most obvious, or one of the most obvious benefits that people usually see, yung mga handicap parking spaces in the malls or in parking lots. Since Sir Nolly mentioned that you don't really distinguish between persons with disabilities, even if it's a psychological disability or kunwari bipolar or alcoholic. So for instance, if you have like really a certified person with disability suffering from alcoholism or autism, do you then get to park in the handicap parking?
No.
No.
Because Batas Pambansa 344 is about mobility.
Okay.
And privileged parking is for persons with mobility impairment. So the parking applies only to a person who has a problem in mobility, like is a wheelchair user, he is a stroke survivor and has mobility in moving.
What
And,
about blind people?
Yeah.
Is that
Blind
considered-
people, because they do not require a bigger parking space, and even if they are blind, they can use the regular parking because they have no other mobility problems aside from not seeing. But for sure, they can survive with the.
Yeah.
But much as possible, we want that people with the privileged parking is for people with mobility impairment.
Yeah. Now let's see. You're talking about people with mobility,
disabilities.
and all that. But generally, if you're, let's say, applying for an ID,
Yes.
because there are certain rights and privileges that
Yeah.
you can get
Yeah, that
from the
is
government.
Republic
yeah.
Act 9442, or an
That-
act providing privileges to persons with disability, and specifically 20% discount on purchases of medicine. And,
Any type of medicine or
any
even
type of
vitamins?
medicine, but also depend on food supplement, like yung mga, how do you call it, yung mga
Vitamins.
vitamins na yung mga ordinary, but those are you on
Prescribed.
prescribed, yeah,
Okay.
prescribed medicine. It should be in their name.
Okay.
And prove also that the supplement is will boost the condition of the person, that can be included in the 20% discount on medical services, hospitalization, dental
Even
services.
Now, is this over and above, let's say, a
laboratory.
senior citizen discount?
No, if you're a person with disability
And you're a senior citizen?
and you're a senior citizen, you have to choose which
which-
do you want
okay.
to. Of course, you have to choose the senior citizen
Yes,
ID, because
Nolly, you
it's,
wanted to
Sir
say something?
Nolly can very
It's,
well speak
non-
though on this
Well, I'm
matter.
about senior and disabled. The difference is that in the senior citizens, we are not charged VAT.
yes.
In the case of persons with disability, the
You're still charged
discount is
VAT.
not.
Yeah.
So
So,
you still have to pay VAT.
yeah. So to my mind, it's a discriminatory issue, no? Why is it that the senior citizens is going to get that extra privilege of not paying value-added tax, while persons with disability who needs it more than the senior citizen
Yes, yeah.
should not be paying value-added tax?
No, yeah, I guess.
So I guess we go
yeah.
back to our earlier question now. Do you think there are enough laws that protect or at least provide benefits to persons with disabilities?
I think not much, because like the the 20% discount, that is only for people who have jobs, who have money. And if you don't have job, if you don't have money, you cannot use that privilege because you have nothing to spend.
Nothing to buy. Yeah.
Okay, but what would be the main law? I mean, if I was a PWD, what would be
Or
the
if
main
I have,
law? Yeah,
for instance,
if I
for
take care of
families that
someone,
have
yeah,
children
take care of someone.
with PWD,
Yeah, what
can
law
they
do I?
look at?
I mean, is there? I know there's a Magna Carta for
Yes,
disabled
yes.
persons. What Republic Act is this?
Republic Act
7277.
7277,
Alright.
and some of its provisions were already amended, like Section 40 is already amended into RA 10070.
which is about what po?
It's about creation of Person with Disabilities Affairs Office in all local government units.
Okay. And do you think this is followed? So, for instance, if for people out there with PWD members ng family, can they go to their city hall or municipality and then find this new office?
Unfortunately, very few local government units are adhering to that law, and we are now coming up with a campaign together with DILG to really encourage local government units to really set up the PIDAW. And in fact, one of the good news is that DILG has already included disability compliance to all LGUs for the seal of good governance.
All right, all right.
So if they don't have the PIDAW, even no matter how good they are, if they are not in compliance with disability laws, they will not get the seal of good governance.
I see. All right. Okay,
And
so
for now, we still have a lot of questions, but we're starting
there's
to
a
get
ton.
questions from our viewers. So we'll start with a question from Keksi. I am a single mother to a mentally disabled child. The father of my child does not support us upon learning that he is disabled. We are now living with my parents, but I still need help financially. Can I apply I guess for him, a PWD ID, SSS, PhilHealth, and the like? What are the requirements for the ID and memberships, and what benefits and privileges can he receive?
Well, ID, I think, very easy. That can be done, and the Office of Carmen can easily help in issuance
All
of
they
that
need
ID.
to do is they have to go to their nearest local government unit or the Social Welfare Development Office and bring the certificate. If the disability is non-apparent, they have to bring a medical abstract and they will be issued an ID.
Can you give an example po of non-apparent
Like, for
disabilities?
example, if the child is deaf, the child has a mental disability or intellectual disability, if he has autism or anything that is not seen, they have to produce a medical abstract. And that abstract from a doctor, certified doctor with license number, that is enough for the LGU to issue the PWD ID.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, great.
And what type of benefits? Sorry, another question.
The
sub-question
only
pala.
benefit that they would get is they have 20% discount for all purchases of medicine, milk if he's still consuming milk, diapers,
I understand even-
medical services,
Even entertainment, right?
entertainment,
Movies and-
recreation,
Yes, recreation, yeah.
restaurants.
What about tuition fees for schools? Do they get-
For tuition fees, we have to really clarify on that because it also says that some for school supplies they are also entitled, but as for tuition fee, we are not yet so clear about that in the guidelines because it's not aptly mentioned in the
law.
implementing rules.
Okay.
All right.
It was not specifically when we were discussing this during that presentation or the formulation of the law, because principally the government does not charge you for elementary if you go to public school or high school. So you can at least get primary and secondary education.
Yes.
And you do not pay the fee. So that was taken into consideration by the framer of the law. No?
So, but what you're saying in private schools, there's no specific.
Parang walang
None in the
specific.
private.
Okay.
Specific.
Although I'd
Yeah.
like to add for Kaiksi, she also mentioned that the father refused to support the child just because he found out that the child was disabled or handicapped. My tip to you is that you can still demand from the father to support your child because it's his legal obligation. So you can file a case with the court, a complaint to get support from the father.
Maybe under the VAUSI law.
Pwede
no?
rin, yes.
VAUSI law.
Violence
Yeah,
against
the
women and
violence,
children.
yeah.
He can go to the barangay, for instance, and get a barangay protection order if that's applicable. But
Yeah.
definitely, you have laws on your side to get support from your
Yes.
husband.
All right, our next question is from Albert. My family and relatives were out having dinner at a restaurant. We were about to pay the bill, and my deaf nephew presented his PWD ID. However, the waiter didn't believe that my nephew was deaf and asked for a demonstration to verify that he's indeed deaf. We left without paying for our meal, disgusted with how the waiter treated my nephew. Shouldn't the ID be enough proof that he's disabled? In cases like these, can we sue the waiter and the restaurant for moral damages and for violating my nephew's rights?
Yes.
Sabay-sabay
It's a
tayo, yes.
resounding.
Yeah.
Because before you get an ID, you were already screened, you already presented the proof. That's why you were issued an ID. So nobody can question the validity of the ID of a person with disability issued by the local government.
Since we're in the topic of establishments, are these things, like let's say larger areas for disabled people in restrooms and special parking places, are these required already by the law and therefore under penalty if they didn't have it? Can they?
So
can
for
they be
instance,
punished?
if you're a person with disability working in an office and your office is difficult to access kasi wala sila ng mga pang-handicap, for instance, can you report them?
Well, it is basically in Batas and 344, it is required because Batas and 344 specifically is for structure. Now, for those who were not able to comply, there are incentive provided for under Republic Act 7277 that when you make some renovation, you can get back 50% of the cost against your tax payment or tax credit. Similarly, if you employ one, there are incentive provided by 7277.
All right.
So it's just a question probably a question of a lot of people or a lot of corporations and do not know
Uniform, yeah.
and have not learned enough on the provision of 7277.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Well, I still have a lot of questions, especially on the employment opportunities for people, persons with disabilities. But For now, we have to take a break. So we still have a lot to discuss. Legal Help Desk will return after these messages. Persons with disabilities, or PWDs, have the same rights as persons without disabilities. Unfortunately, they are not treated equally. Disabilities are perceived as weaknesses, especially in the workforce of any industry, which is something Virgie Montilla is very familiar with.
Nagsimula ang kapansanan ko nung ako'y 14 years old. Na-diagnose ako ng PATS disease o yung TB of the bones. Graduate ako ng una kong course, yung Computer Secretarial Education, and then yung pangalawa kong course sa BS Social Work. Nung mag-graduate ako, nag-attempt ako mag-apply ng work sa labas. But then, sa phone interview, I passed the interview. And then, nung pinapunta na ako doon sa office, doon ang company yon, nung makita ko na naka-wheelchair, ang sabi nila sa akin, ay, pasensya na po, we have no facilities for wheelchair users. Hindi na nila ako sinabihan na hide ako, basta yun na lang. So, ibig sabihin no, na hesitant silang tumanggap. Kaya noon, mula noon, hindi na ako nag-attempt. Luckily naman, itong taan ng walang hagdanan, after ng talagang dito na ako nag-work. So far, mayroon namang mga pagbabago. Parang unti-unti na na-realize yung batas na yun. Pero talagang when it comes to implementation, mabagal pa rin. Kung bibigyan lang nila ng talaga ng pansin yung batas para sa may kapansanan, bilang isang sektor ng lipunan, maisali talaga yung mga persons with disability sa kanilang agenda of good governance, siguro magiging maalwan ang buhay ng mga persons with disability.
You are still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. And we are still joined by our guest, Manuel Agkawili, President and CEO of Tahanan Walang Hagdan, and Honorable Carmen Reyes-Zubiaga of National Council on Disability Affairs.
Yeah, okay. I think there's still a lot of questions, especially when it comes to employment. No? I think, Karen, just before the break, you had a couple of questions regarding employment of disabled
One,
persons.
I was going to ask if having a disability is a ground for employers to refuse employment, which is what happened to Virgie in this case.
That's discrimination.
Yeah, that is discrimination. And that is where the Magna Carta provision on employment comes in, that no qualified person with disability shall be denied of employment on the basis of disability.
So in this case, Virgie could have complained.
Yes,
to the
she could
department.
have complained or filed a complaint about the company, and the company should answer for
And
that.
the complaint is with the NLRC? Or may iba po bang
Department of
agency
There is
pagka
another,
PWDs?
the Magna Carta, she can file directly to DOJ about the case.
So it's
Oh, that's
the
good.
Department
Oh,
of
yes.
Justice.
Very
So
interesting.
that's a good thing to
Yeah.
highlight, that for PWDs, you don't have to go to the NLRC or
No.
the Department of Labor,
Because
you
there
go
is
to
no
the
yet,
Department of Justice.
there is no yet employee-employer relationship. She was discriminated on the basis of her disability.
But if you're fired when you're already an employee, then you can go
Yeah,
to
you
the
can go to NLRC and even go direct to DOJ.
No, when it comes to employing disabled persons, the Magna Carta, I understand, I think Title II, no, in the rights of disabled people, when it comes to employment, provides for the Department of Education, DSWD. If you're going to have contractual workers, I think 5% of those are reserved for disabled persons.
Yeah, but that is
Is that correct?
already superseded by RA 10524
Okay.
for reserving 1% of positions in government and private corporations
1%.
for persons with disabilities.
And it doesn't have to be casual or casual emergency kasi in
It's
the previous law,
all types,
so 1%.
all types of employment.
So every sector, every industry should dedicate 1%.
yeah, at least
of their workforce
we said at
for
least
PWDs.
1% of the workforce should be person with disability, and that applies to companies with 100 or more.
More employees.
Okay,
Yeah.
so everyone with
Employees.
100 or more
If
employees.
you're discovered that you're not complying with that, what are the penalties for the corporation?
Right now we're still
Discussing
discussing
this.
the implementing rules and regulation,
Okay.
but
But suffice it to say that the law is there.
yes,
So they
the
have
law
to-
is there. We only have
And
to,
there will be
There will be.
consequences.
There will be
Yes,
consequences.
yes.
Okay.
Sir
But
Noli,
there are already a lot of companies who
Who
are
have
already started. More specifically, I don't want to go into the name of the company, but in the call center business, there are a lot of persons with disability that they have employed no?
yeah.
in the encoding
yeah.
process. No? So in terms of really employment, we have also to consider an area that is quite important. We have very few educated and trained persons with disability. In terms of education, we also have a problem because there are approximately estimated about 2.2 million children with disability or qualified to go to school. But when you look at the enrollment numbers as far as DepEd is concerned, there are only 106,000. So
But you know,
the 2 million are still out there.
But then something I noticed, it's very expensive. The special education usually that are required for instance, gifted children, they're more expensive. So for parents, for instance, who have little income, they cannot afford maybe to send their
We
kids
have to make to separate the gifted
Yes.
from persons with disability. No? And as far as we're concerned, I think it's about time that we go into inclusive education, where really you get the child to go to school and join the regular school. I'm a product of a regular school. Carmen is a product of the regular school. We're more
So more of inclusion, more
inclusion,
rather
yeah.
than
we're more able to adjust to the problems that we encounter going to school. But you know, to give them into a special education type, nagkaminsan, ano sila eh.
yeah.
Well, I'm talking about, for instance, children who are deaf-mute. Some curriculums, I think, of the more common schools do not have, they are not customized for
Yes.
deaf-mute children. I don't think that the teachers are trained.
The
to
school should
have-
then adjust to the requirement of the student.
Yeah, I think
Is that required under the law for schools to provide teachers who can teach or educate children, including deaf-mutes, in their regular
yes,
class?
because we have the education for all, which is one of the convention which was signed way back before the UNCRPD, and now what we really are campaigning and promoting inclusive education in a sense that the school system has to provide support services for persons with disabilities. Like, for example, they have to train interpreters in different types, technical interpreters, reading interpreters. It's not, we really have to look into it seriously if we want our children with disabilities to grow up in a society where they will be accepted as they are. And as long as the educational system will not reform itself, there will be the problem of children with disabilities will always remain. And if we do not provide support services for them, then we cannot expect any good product from the public school that where most of the grassroots children with disabilities belong. And if we do not really come up with a good reform, not really looking into the needs and how these needs should be met, then it's always the case that
we will not
Persons with
qualify
disabilities
for
will
employment.
no employment, they will always remain the poorest
always-
among the poor.
Always a domino
Yes.
effect. No,
I
yeah.
have a question for Sir Nolly with respect to employment. So, assuming they qualify for employment, can the employers then say that I will pay you less than my other employees since I can't expect you to be as efficient or as mobile? I can't send you to the field.
Unless the company is supposed to, an NGO, for instance, with a shelter program, yes, you can bring it down. But a company cannot.
So,
A
a company has
profit-
to pay minimum wage or
minimum
the
wage,
same rate for
regular.
that job.
Yes. However, they can go to file for the incentive that is provided for under 7277.
Yeah,
What
I was going to
incentive
talk
is
about
that?
that. The corporations are incentivized, right? The corporations are incentivized to hire disabled people. Right?
Yes.
What kind of incentives are there? I mean, I know there are tax deductions. Or can you elaborate on that? What kind of benefits
There
or reliefs
is,
can
they
get?
can, for instance, if you employ somebody and pay him 10,000, you can charge the government 12,500 against your tax. Okay? So there is a 25%.
I see. Okay, so you can deduct that from your taxable income.
And
right?
if you have to modify the facilities by which the persons with disability is going to work, and you spend, let's say, 10,000 pesos for the
For
modification,
the facility, yeah.
you can charge 5,000 to your deductible income tax.
I see. All right. Okay. So those are the incentives that,
Yes.
that are.
Well, we would like to
yeah.
encourage that they provide more so that they can increase the employment situation.
I'm curious about how much the rights and obligations are of, the obligations of the government to persons with disabilities are being observed in terms of the local governments. What are the statistics, Sir Nolly? Like how many, for instance, cities, municipalities have complied with the requirements?
The way I see it, and I don't know whether Carmen will agree with me, is quite often it's the lack of knowledge about what
What they need to do.
privileges
What they
the
need to
privileges, yeah.
provide? Or
they
what
have to
facilities?
provide. They have to provide, no? Excuse me. For instance, in terms of Republic Act 10070, no? We're having some problems in terms of the government, local government, understanding why there is a need for one to put up an office for persons with disability. And some of them are saying, we don't feel that we should put it up because there's only 1,400,000.
So
That's
parang
the
not
biggest
enough
statistic.
voters to support
okay. So
yung
it doesn't,
providing
the politics
the
doesn't
benefit.
work. All right.
The
that's
numbers
sad. Yeah, the
on
numbers.
politics
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Anyway, we have a sorry to interrupt, but Sir Enrico posted a question on Facebook. What about students with physical disabilities? Are there governing laws that the school should comply to aid them while they are in school?
This
Yeah.
adds to kanina what
Yeah.
Ma'am Carmen was
in what
discussing.
sense? First, the school should be accessible. They should be compliant with disability law if they claim to be a regular school. So that is one of the laws that should govern the school, because no structure should be in operation without compliance to Batas Pambansa Bilang 344.
Which provides facilities for
facilities
handicap.
for
And
persons with
And that
disabilities.
educational institution can face penalties if they don't
Yes,
comply.
they
Let me
they
just
can.
point out that it's not just the ramp that we're talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
when
Yes,
it comes
all
to
the other-
accessibility.
Yeah.
There is also the comfort room
Yeah.
Yes.
that they should be able to go in.
Right.
And when you talk of accessibility for those who are hearing impaired, there must be sufficient signs
Right. Right.
for them to be able to know where they're going. Because basically, hearing impaired people are eye people.
Yeah.
So they need to know, they have to see signs.
Right.
And Ma'am Carmen was also mentioning earlier with respect to access to books.
Yeah.
That maybe you can repeat that to the viewers.
Yes, persons with libraries are now allowed to reproduce copyright materials into accessible formats for the blind and those who have print impairment, which means that they can produce the books into large print format, into audio file.
Without getting any
Without
copyright.
violating
infringement.
any
Without
copyright laws.
violating the copyright law, as long as it is for learning, for the use in learning.
Very handy tip for parents out there with
Absolutely.
children with PWDs.
Yes.
Okay,
Alright.
another question from Rainier, who posted on our Facebook page. A doctor told me that the amended law includes cancer patients as PWDs. But when I applied, I was rejected. Can you please clarify?
Yeah, because when we say chronic illness, that is a medical condition. It's not necessarily a disability. But if because of your condition, you acquired a certain disability, like you have limitation in mobility, you became blind, you became, you have you have a nervous
Can't
breakdown,
walk
or
or-
you became psychologically
Impaired.
unstable, impaired, then that's the time that they can issue an ID, but it has to have proof or
And it has to
certified
be
by a
permanent.
doctor.
You read the definition earlier.
Yes, it should
Nakalagay
be long-term permanent.
But if it lasts for only, kunwari akala nila permanent, but then after 6 months it was cured, do they
That's-
revoke the PWD
Yes,
ID?
that's why the PWD ID is only for 3 years. It has to be
Because they
review
every
it.
3 years.
I see. So if I had a car accident and I was
Akala nila,
disabled at
yeah.
the time,
Yeah.
and then I got a PWD ID,
Yes.
later on I'm healed na,
Yeah,
I'm not
then,
entitled anymore.
You are again entitled to present a medical
I see.
certificate.
Okay, good point. Good point
Yes.
there. Now, our next question is from Bernadette. My daughter is a special child and is enrolled in a special education school. There have been several incidences when she gets upset and hits her teachers and classmates. The principal told me to look for another school for my daughter because her teachers cannot handle her anymore. Is this right? Can I file a case against them, or is this valid due to some policy they may have? So.
If it's a private school, sorry to say that they may have
The right.
the right to refuse. Also for the advantage, that is also for the advantage of the child. Because if the child would remain in that school and would not learn anything, it's also the loss of the parents. So if they would find a suitable school for her, then it would be for the benefit of the child. But they should talk, and they should the parents and the school should work together. If they can come up with an agreement, and the school is willing to really
Work it out, you know, yeah.
to work it out with them, that would be
Kasi in
fine.
this case, she was getting violent.
But
Yeah,
for,
yeah.
for public schools, they cannot.
For public school, they cannot, especially if she is in a special education program.
All right.
And we have another question from our Twitter page. Should old malls retrofit their designs to accommodate PWDs?
They should.
Yes.
They are a public establishment, so they should comply.
They are
And you
required.
who do you report to? Which agency do you report to if you're observing that the mall does not have all the facilities for PWDs?
First is the local government. And if the local government doesn't work, then they can come to us, to NCDA, and then we will negotiate with the mall. And like what we did in one of the malls near us, that we really negotiated about from the complaints of persons with disabilities within the area. And the mall was really happy that we sent them DPWH people to really guide them on how to
The
make the malls.
retrofitting.
So,
Where's the office of the
NCDA is at Isidora Street, Barangay Holy Spirit, along Commonwealth Avenue, Quezon City.
Okay, there you
Okay,
go.
that's-
All right. Oh, we have one last question. One last question? Oh, wow. Time does fly. Okay, this question from Ambeth. What penalties can establishments face? Oh, we were talking about this. If they do not acknowledge or give discounts to persons with disabilities, where can a person report such violations? Yeah, the 20% discount, if they don't grant it, where do they go?
DOJ.
BOT.
DOJ.
No.
Department of Health and DOJ are two areas.
For example, if it's a drugstore, then they can report it to Food and Drug Administration about because the Food and Drug is the one that gives sanction to all pharmacies and the drugstore that do not comply with the PWD discount. And for negotiation, and we can NCDA can remind the establishment that they are violating the law.
If it's a restaurant, can I apply? Can I go to the government to remove their business permit for?
Yes, in fact, now that we are working on the creation of local task force on accessibility in every city and municipality, persons with disabilities are part of the monitoring team, and they themselves are the one really inspecting and doing audits, access audits in all public establishment, and they can make a recommendation. And it was very nice that one of the cities here in NCR has the battle cry of this office is no access, no permit, no business.
That's
So
good.
without
okay.
compliance, they will not be given, they will not be issued a
Fantastic.
permit.
Great
That's
policy.
good, yeah.
All right.
We will take another short break, but before that, we would like to thank our guest, Manuel Agkawili, President and CEO of Tahanang Walang Hagdan, and Honorable Carmen Reyes-Zubiaga of the National Council on Disability Affairs for being with us tonight. Thank you so
Thank you very
much.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank
for
you.
all viewers out there, don't forget, if you want to report a mall or any violations, NCWDA,
NCDA.
Yes,
yeah,
you can go
NCDA
to
can help you.
our you can go to our website ncda.gov.ph, or you can send us an email at council@ncda.gov.ph.
You are part of DSWD, right?
We are an attached
Attached
agency
agency
of
of
DSWD.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Legal Help Desk will return, so stay tuned.
Aside from the Magna Carta for PWDs, the country also has BP 344. Batas Pambansa 344 is a set of rules and regulations providing standards required for buildings, facilities, and utilities to meet the needs of persons with disabilities to function on their own.
BP 344 o yung Batas Pambansa, nakasaad dito na dapat yung mga accessibility natin sa mga buildings dapat ay pwede sa lahat ng klase ng may kapansanan. Yung naka-wheelchair, yung deaf, tsaka yung mga kapatid natin mga blind.
Graphic signs should be bold and installed in every point of entry to the connecting destination. Walkway shall be provided with adequate passageway. Width of corridors should be followed according to the provision of the law. Doors and entrances should be designed to open easily. Washroom and toilets should be accessible and provided with adequate turning space, especially to accommodate those in wheelchairs. Whenever an elevator is required, it should meet the minimum width of 800 millimeters. Ramps shall be provided as means of access to level of change going to entry points and entrances.
You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. And today we had a very interesting topic.
I love the topic,
about
yeah.
persons with disabilities.
I love the topic because I think, honestly, and we were talking with them off air, we're a bit behind. Well, maybe not a bit behind. We're quite behind
No, they
as a
were
country.
mentioning,
No?
si Sir Nolly kanina
Yeah.
was saying that Philippines is one of the countries where they feel the most discriminated. He
Yeah.
said, we feel treated like,
Yeah.
not like persons, but
Things.
Not like in the US, for instance, na talagang you see them giving priority
Yeah.
to
And
persons
then-
with disabilities.
And then he was saying that in the States, where there's a bus like that, the bus will stop, the bus driver will go down, put down the ramp manually, push the
Yeah.
person with disability up the bus and do that. You'll never see that here. I mean, of course, our buses are kind of packed, no? I mean,
Yeah.
to begin with, they can't even sneak in, diba? So,
But I think it's really a lack of information. So today we learned quite a few things.
Yeah.
One is that you can demand first a PWD ID if you are a person with disability or any member of your family has a disability, then you can get a PWD ID for them.
Yeah.
And importantly siguro, is to clarify yung definition ng disability.
Yeah.
So
And
it's not
it's-
just people in wheelchairs
Yeah.
or
It's expanded
blind
na, no?
people. Yes, kasama psychological
Psychological, yeah.
disorders. And that's very important to know, di ba?
anything that incapacitates you and debilitates you that doesn't allow you to function normally. As
Including
normal-
bipolar,
yeah, as
psychological problems.
Even
Kasama
alcoholism.
pala. Alcoholism, yes, if it makes you
Yeah.
disabled or impaired.
And one thing we learned, kunyari, if you have cancer, in it by itself, it's not considered a disability, but the moment your cancer has left you impaired in any physical way, then you can apply for a PWD ID.
And this entitles you to several rights, including discounts on medicines, discounts on even some supplements that is required for your condition, and discounts in restaurants and in movie theaters. So maraming discounts. It's important to have this PWD ID, and it's only the issuing authority that can question your PWD ID. So if you present this, for instance, in a restaurant and they refuse to honor it, you can report that restaurant.
You can file a case, yeah. And also, if establishments, you can actually report establishments to the local government if they don't comply with facilities for PWDs. You can actually apply for the revocation of their business permit. So it's pretty,
Yes,
pretty
and for
powerful.
employers out there, take note, you cannot discriminate persons with disabilities just because they're handicapped or disabled. So if they are able to pass your requirements, kunwari,
Yeah.
they have the intellectual capacity for it, you have to hire them. You
have to
can't
hire them.
discriminate. And you have to give them equal pay.
Otherwise, they can face DOJ, diba? Hindi lang NLRC, DOJ yan, diba? It's a DOJ case. All right, this is part of the program where we read them the questions sent to us by our viewers on topics that we have previously discussed, and we'd like to answer them, and it'll serve as a recap for the benefit of everybody. We'll start with Twitter handler I am Mark Nelson, who asks, where and how to report medical malpractice? I'm a victim and suffering from it. I'm from Bohol and an earthquake victim.
Kawawa
Well,
naman. He was
oh,
an earthquake
yeah.
victim pala from Bohol. But to our Twitter question, you can report to the PRC,
yeah.
Philippine Regulatory Commission, and this is more of an administrative case. So
Yeah.
kung sino man tong doctor na to, you might be able to get his license revoked. And another also remedy that you may have is to file a case for damages in court. So we don't really have a strictly medical malpractice law, but for whatever damages you sustained, kasama na dyan ang moral damages, and of course the actual expenses that you were able to incur because of the malpractice, you can file a case for damages.
All right, so our next question. Yeah.
Our next question
Well said.
is from Twitter user @Tauhan. I have a problem with my employer. They did not remit my PhilHealth since the third quarter of last year, but they continued deductions in my salary. What to do?
All right. Well, there's a PhilHealth office in almost every LGU, so they can go there. You can report it to PhilHealth. PhilHealth will be the one, diba? Will be the one to go after
Yes.
the employer.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So you
can-
don't have to worry about your employer. If you report to PhilHealth, they'll go after your employer, and then they will, of course, give you your benefits under PhilHealth. Tapos sila na bahalang humabol sa
Humabol
employer
for
mo.
the premiums. Right? Now, okay, Ernesto sent us this question via Facebook. I'm 62 years old, a retired SSS member, and I'm receiving a pension. I'm still healthy as of today. What can I get from being a Medicare member since 1973? I don't have an ID. Should I need one? If I recall,
This is transported,
This is
to
yeah.
PhilHealth.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you contributed in Medicare, that is still considered that you're going to be credited for those contributions. So I think the best thing to do is really go to your PhilHealth office and find out about those the contributions you made in Medicare. You lost your ID. It's possible that PhilHealth might not have your your record, but who knows? They may have it.
They
right?
all, kasi
yeah.
we were told that they transferred all the files from the old system under Medicare, and then it should be in PhilHealth.
It should be there, yeah.
Yes,
Right.
and don't worry, even if you're healthy, of course,
Yeah.
doesn't stop you from getting your benefits from PhilHealth.
That's a blessing.
We also received some comments and reviews from people who have watched the show. At Marge543 tweeted, "First time to watch the show. Thank you for all the info. Your show is very informative and helpful." Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And from Facebook, Infinity Yumi posted, "I like your show. It's very educational and informative. The two hosts are also very good. They ask all the right questions and handle the show well. God bless you."
Wow.
Sweet.
Is that
That's
my
very-
friend?
Or was that you, Rod? The two hosts.
Maybe a cousin or something.
But
Wow.
that was very sweet.
Very
Thank you
sweet.
so
Thank you
much.
very much. And we always try to improve the show week in, week out. So thank you for all your support.
And keep sending those comments. We really, really appreciate it.
Right. And unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for tonight. Time's always so short with you, Karen. Yeah. And we would like to thank our guests who were with us earlier, and to all our viewers who sent us their questions via social media. I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. If you have any questions regarding our topic for today, you may send them via our Facebook or Twitter accounts. Join us again next Monday as we discuss your legal rights. Good night.